Next one, please.
Hey, John, Merle, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I love to be able to do that. I feel like a minister. Welcome to the December 4th meeting of the Lexington Rotary Club. I'd like to have Sharon Reed join us for the inspiration and four-way test and pledge. Give it up for Sharon.
All right. He's tall and I'm short, so we will do the Pledge of Allegiance first and then the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Four-way test. Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. You may be seated. I got permission, I think Jim would probably tell you, but I got permission from Peggy to tell all of you guys that some of you know it and some don't, but she fell the day before Thanksgiving and broke her arm. So be sure to go back where Paul is because he has some cards that you can sign that we're going to take to her this afternoon. And then Paul picked up a flower arrangement for us to take to her. So be sure to think of her. Okay, everybody, here we are. December brings many things for Rotarians. Among those is the excitement of the announcement of Rotary leadership for next year. The wonderful faces of children when they receive gifts and the squeals when they see Santa. The camaraderie that we have with each other at our own holiday party. Through the year, we serve others. In many ways, providing food, cheering the military with packages, providing sanitation to Eastern Kentucky, assisting the earth with our pollinator garden, and raising funds for community needs. Through our activities together, we show the love that we feel for all in our Rotary family. Thank you.
And I forgot to tell you, it's a great day to be a Rotarian. Now we'll bring Gordon Patterson up for the lottery, and then Matt will come to you. I'm taking two because they're small.
Ace of Diamonds, $400.
Ace of Diamonds, $400. The last four digits are 1948. George Brooks, you bring a guest and look what happens. The second ticket, 1912. One nine one two.
Stop.
Were you looking for verification or what?
There you go.
Enjoy that dollar. And now Matt Tabb, come on and join us with introduction of guests.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. It is a beautiful yet snowy December day, and we are glad you all have made the trek out here to join us. We do have a few guests that we'd like to recognize today. First, joining us, Steve Grossman, who is a guest of George Brooks. Gip Dunning is a guest of Lyle Hanna's. And a returning member, Daniel Zabala, has joined us again. Mary Diane Hanna has also joined Lyle today. And finally, Carson Evans, who is Joe Evans' father. So let's give our guests a round of applause, folks.
You know, it's interesting, having done this once before. I had to do a Lex Arts songwriting round a couple of weeks ago, and there was another songwriter, a young songwriter. Well, they were all young compared to me. But I was asking what was his style of music, and he said Americana. I have no idea what that is. And he said, and what is yours? And I went, I've been told it's vintage. And I'm saying that only because this is a vintage meeting where we've got Steve Grossman and Carson Evans in the room. This is a good day to be a Rotarian. We got a couple birthdays this week. Joe Bevan and Kathy Taylor celebrating birthdays. Let's give them a hand. I'm going to bring up Susan Adams. I'm getting a little bit of her. Jenny, I'll get it back on. Don't tell Peggy. Good God, don't tell her. Oh, hi, Peggy. Everybody on Zoom, how y'all doing? Susan, come up. We're going to talk about the holiday party.
Happy holidays to everyone. Everyone here is invited to join us at the Rotary Holiday Party. It's going to be at the Campbell House on Thursday, December 18th. It's going to start at 6 p.m. And if you can't be there right at 6, don't worry. Cocktails are what starts, and then we move into the dinner buffet. We're going to have the UK Jazz Trio that played for us last year during cocktails and dinner. And then after dinner, we'll have a DJ for dancing. Bring your significant others, bring friends, bring potential Rotarians. Eric Brooks and Brad Blaine and I were at a tasting at the Campbell House on Monday, and we feel the food's going to be fantastic. If you scan the QR codes on your table, on the signs there, and then hit tickets, you'll be able to see the whole menu. And this is a buffet, so you can go back for seconds and choose everything that you want. The Rotary Club of Woodford County has been invited. The Rotary Lexington After Hours Club has been invited, and we want to see all of you there just so we can have some fun Rotary times and a relaxed evening and just time to get together with everyone. So please scan those QR codes and buy your tickets.
Hi, Peggy. How we doing? Okay. I'm going to bring up Jenny. You want to come up now?
Hey y'all, I want to talk really quickly about our Around the World fundraiser. We had an amazing first showing last time. One of our Rotarians, Mike Stutland, a home chef, took away the big prize for the best dish. And we want it to be bigger and better for 2026. So we are hoping to have some performances from some different cultural groups, more food, more beverage. We're going to have it here at Main on Main. So you know what that means? We need volunteers. We need committee members. We are going to have a committee meeting at 3:30 p.m. on Zoom or virtually in some variety. next Monday. If you are interested in joining that committee, please talk to me or Brett Anderson and we will get you on the invitation. This event is going to be a huge moneymaker for us as we move forward and help with our operations, keeping the club moving forward. So we would love to have you participate and be part of that.
Thank you, Jenny. A couple other quick announcements. Tomorrow morning, we have the early morning mixer, Lexington Green from 8 to 9:30. It's a great event, especially if you want to bring someone as a guest. It's out at Lexington Green and it's a wonderful time. And Jenny usually comes and bosses everybody around, tells them what to do. It's wonderful. It's like being at home, being told what to do. Holiday party, hold on, make sure paid. So that's everything. And right now, I'm gonna bring up Lyle to, oh no, I got one more thing. There's, today's the day where we collect money for the wonderful people here at Maine on Main. Let's give them a hand, they're watching. So don't forget, we wanna take care of those folks and also Peggy's card. And then I'm gonna bring up Lyle to introduce the slate for elections and then stay up here to introduce our guest today.
That sounds good. Thank you, Jim. Hey, what a good crowd we've got here today. Way to go. Oh, so there's a paper out front if you want to take a look at it, but we're going to get a communication from Peggy later today. We've got a whole committee that's been working on coming up with a slate of officers for next year. We need to do that election before the end of the year. So there's a candidate for president. His name's Lyle Hanna. I don't know who he is, but I think you ought to probably elect him. But the biggest thing is the candidate for president-elect is Barry Stumbo. Yeah, how about that? And then the candidate for sergeant-at-arms is Susie Basham. And candidate for treasurer is Jenny Schnurr. She's done a fantastic job this last year, and we still have money, so we got to keep her around. We got a candidate for secretary. That's Jared Paul. Hey, how about that? And then we have 6 candidates for the director. We only elect 3 of them, so check these names out. We've got Sam Overby, we've got Don Tharp, we've got Linda Weaver, and we've got Chris Anderson, we've got RG Conley, sorry about that, RG, and we've got Cheyenne McBride. So, whoop, did I get them all? Yep, there you go. Those are the candidates for the board, and you'll get communication about it later today, and let's get a vote in. Just do it online and let's make it happen. Thanks to all those candidates. Good work. That's it. Oh, there was somebody else that was gonna. Okay, let's move right on to a program because we got a terrific program. Have you been in rooms? I've been in this happened where people are debating about what is this? Is global warming? Is this really a thing or not? Well, we happen to have an expert in our community that is really one of the global experts on this. And his name is Don Colliver. He's been teaching out at University of Kentucky for the past 45 years. He's been involved in this profession. He's got a PhD from Purdue University. He's an expert professional engineer. Am I ringing back on you? And you've got the thing right there. It tells all about it. But just a couple little highlights I wanted to hit about him because he has really spent his career with things about building buildings. How do you get the temperature and all that control in buildings and what impact do they have on the community around them and that kind of stuff. He's been the president of the American Society of Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigerator Engineers. That's ASHRA. It's a huge organization, 55,000 members in 132 countries around the world. It's a big organization, and they are tracking this stuff. So there's science behind it to say, is it really heating? Is it really getting warmer? And that's what he's spent his career doing. And he's been speaking now. The past 2 years, he's spoken in 20 countries around the world. And I thought, if he's speaking in all those countries, we ought to get him right here in Lexington to tell us what's going on. So give him a big warm welcome for Don Colliver. Step on up here, Don.
Okay, let me get this time started here. Thank you, Lyle. It has not quite 132. I went through it this morning and tried to reduce them some. So anyway, we are getting some feedback here. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning. Actually, I was here several years ago at the invitation of Sharon Townsend when UK sponsored a solar decathlon where we had a house that we built on campus and we took it to Washington, D.C. We brought it back. Anyway, it's great to be here back in the Rotary. And a great day to speak on climate change, isn't it? With the snow and so forth. So anyway, what I want to do is try to get away from the political issues regarding climate change. What I want to talk about is the scientific part of it. So what we'll do first is talk about, actually, I don't know if you can see, let's move this down. Some of those slides are down at the bottom here, so that's why I was trying to make room for you. So what we'll do is first talk a little bit about what is the climate, and there's a difference between climate and weather. This is weather outside. Weather is those things that happen day to day. Climate is what happens over years, months, and centuries. And so what we'll be doing is talking about climate, what has happened, why is it happening, and then what can we do about it? So let's look at, and this is what a graphic that's showing how the global temperature is changed since 1850. And it's continuing on, but anyway, to make a long story short, you see that the rings have grown bigger. So the inner ring is at 100 or 1.5 degrees above what the average was in 1850. And as it goes, you see that it's greatly expanded. So let's look further then look at it statically and see what the temperature has changed over the centuries. So this is a graph that's presenting what has the temperature of the Earth been in the last 2,000 years. Zero line here in the center is the what we are normalizing and saying what is the set point between 1850 and 1900. So everything is relative to that time frame. And we see from 1850 to the year 2020, the temperature has greatly increased in a very short time period since the Industrial Revolution. But then you say, okay, that's just the last 2,000 years. Yes, things have changed. If we look at here on the left, this graphic is showing what has been the temperature change, or what is the temperature range over the last 100,000 years. So between here and here is what the temperature range has been over the last 100,000 years. This is what it is today. Well, so much for globally. What's happening in Lexington? So I'm pulling a lot of this data from NOAA, the group in America that's responsible for climate, responsible for archiving and collecting and data related to climate. And it's much of this information has been collected over the centuries. And many of the graphics today that I'm showing are from Climate Central. It is a foundation, or it's a group that's sponsored by Bill Hewlett of Hewlett and Packard. His wife has a foundation that sponsors Climate Central. And so many of the graphics that I'm talking about today will be coming from them. So I want to give them attribution. But we see, and what I'm going to be doing for the next few slides here is looking at what has the temperature in Lexington, what has the temperature done in the last 50 years. So in wintertime, today's wintertime temperatures are roughly 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than they were in the 70s. The spring is about 3 degrees warmer. The summer is about 2 degrees warmer, and the same is true with the fall. Well, what's our prediction on a snowy Christmas? Over the last 50 years, the 12 days of Christmas have increased this, and currently it's about 5 degrees warmer than what it was 50 years ago. Our average winter temperature, that is from December to February in the last 50 years in Lexington, has increased about 4.5 degrees. We see that we are also having less extreme cold temperatures in Lexington. And our lowest temperature of the year is about 9 degrees higher now than it was 50 years ago. Well, let's talk about the summer. From June to August, we see in the last 50 years, our average Lexington temperature during the summer, and this is June to August, our average temperature has increased about 2 degrees. Does it last longer? Yes. So the last day above 40 degrees is 14 degrees later now than what it was 50 years ago. And we have 19 degrees or 19 days more of above 88 degrees. We have 19 days more now than what we did 50 years ago. So we see a trend that is increasing on what is happening in Lexington. It's worldwide, yes, but it is in Lexington as well. Days with a heat index above greater than 90, we've got 8 more days of that. So when we look at our cooling then, our cooling during the summer and cooling degree days is a measure of how warm it is. And we're seeing about 1/4% or 1/4 as much or more of cooling now than what we did 50 years ago. Yes, it is getting warmer. So, does the Earth have a fever? That's a question I'm asking. Well, I'm not smart enough to analyze all this together. So what I have done is pulled information from the International Panel of Climate Change. Thank you. International Panel of Climate Change, which is a scientific group that is put together by the UN, and it's roughly about 500 scientists from around the world. And they produce these documents about every 5 years or so. The last one was 3 documents that each were about 500 pages each. I'm not going to bore you with the details, so I've tried to pull that 1,500 pages down into just a few slides today. So, earlier I showed the slide of showing what the temperature globally was done over the last 2,000 years. Well, let's kind of expand that out. And we see from 1850 to about 1950, it was fairly level. Then we get the Industrial Revolution, and we see that the observed temperature has increased. Well, the IPCC and the scientists involved there have simulations. They've developed simulations that's also used in models. They're showing what the temperatures are doing, what the climate is doing, what the weather is doing, and what the climate is doing. And they show that this aqua line here is what the natural causes are. And these are the forecasts that show what our weather is doing today and next week and next year and so forth. But the model is showing from 1850 to the industrial age, the model was fitting quite well. So the summary from this is saying, yes, this model is accurate in predicting what's going on. And that's just the natural causes. And in the industrial age, all of a sudden, you see there's a divergence between those two. So they said, okay, let's include what is happening with human causes. And that's what's shown in the brown. And you see it is following very closely what the observed temperatures are. So what can we surmise from that? Yes, it is real. And do humans cause it? Well, there is a study back in the late 70s that says it's linked to CO2. Then later on, we had the linkage is being caused by human is strong was a very strong statement that was supported by over 15,000 scientists in 184 countries that said, yes, the climate is warming, the earth is warming, and humans are causing it. So, the question is, okay, so what? Why? Well, I kind of like to draw the analogy of an energy balance. An energy balance is laws of physics and so forth. And And I was trying to think of what's an analogy that non-engineers can think about. Think of it as in your shower or in your tub. You got water coming in. If the drain's working well, the water goes out. So you've got that balance of what's going in is equal to what's going out. You've got a balance, right? Well, what happens if your drain gets clogged? Something's got to happen. The water increases in your tub. Well, same is true with an energy balance. In order for us to keep the energy in equal to the energy out, what happens is that energy has to be stored somewhere. And that's the way we have the energy balance. That's what unclogs the bathtub. Or if you still have the bathtub plugged, the water rises, right? Well, the analogy is the temperature of the earth rises. Where does that heat or where does that energy get stored? It gets stored in the oceans. And remember, the oceans drive the weather. So energy storage plus our energy out plus storage is occurring because the temperature is rising in the oceans. So our energy balance is roughly this. We have the solar radiation coming in, and that's long wave radiation. Then we have solar radiation coming back out, or I'm sorry, radiation coming back out, and that's at lower temperature, and it's what we call long wave radiation. So the long wave radiation is what's going out. Solar radiation is short wave radiation, and that's what's coming in. So what happens is if there's a difference between those two, we see that what happens is this, the yellow is the solar radiation coming in. The red, the yellow is what is outside the atmosphere. The red is actually what hits the earth. And notice there are some dips in there. Why does the radiation that's on the outside of the atmosphere, why does it not reach the earth? Well, it's absorbed by ozone in the lower radiation, in the lower wavelengths. Ozone hole, when it opened up, we had warning. So then what happens is we've got the oxygen, we've got water molecules and other things that block the solar radiation coming in. So again, let's try to think about this a little bit more, what non-engineers can think about. We know that this is the shortwave radiation from the sun. It's made up of UV, it's made up of visible, and it's made up of longer radiation. And then we have the long wave radiation out on the right. So think of it this way. We have the sunlight coming in that we see as visible radiation, and all of us know about a prism. It breaks out into different colors that represent different wavelengths. What happens if I put a filter in this and it blocks out the green light? So let's say we have a filter that blocks out the green wavelengths. What happens is over on the right, we don't have green. That filter then blocks it out and reflects or absorbs the heat. Well, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrocarbons of different types, they filter out certain wavelengths. The long wavelengths, they filter out. The short wavelengths pass through. Okay? So think of it this way. We have radiation that's coming in. It's hitting the Earth's surface. The long wave radiation then comes back out from the Earth. It will hit a molecule which acts as a filter, and that then radiation gets bounced back to the Earth. Okay? Part of it, when we don't have a lot of those molecules, the radiation goes straight on back out. If, however, we increase the number of those molecules, what happens is you see we've got a lot more arrows coming back down. what I'm saying here is then what you're doing is the more molecules you have in, the more radiation is going to bounce back to the earth. Well, that's what then, oops. As we have more CO2 and as we have more carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, we have more molecules being added to the atmosphere. And what happens is this imbalance between what's coming in and what's going out, we have energy that's absorbed, and it's absorbed in the oceans. Temperature rise in the oceans. So there was, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Conference of Parties, COP30 down in Brazil 3 weeks ago, came up with some data, and I pulled this from that. I used this slide a couple of years ago from some other data. But the question is how much heat was required to heat the ocean? Well, it is the warming of the ocean was due to heat trapped in the ocean, and it was 16 sextillion joules per year. How many of you have heard of a sextillion as a unit? Got any idea how many zeros that is? 21. That is how much energy was stored in the ocean in 2024. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time trying to figure out what is anything to the 21 power with 21 zeros behind. So I tried to think, okay, what is it that might be a huge amount of energy released all of a sudden? Somebody give me some ideas. A nuke. Okay. Boy, y'all are sharp. Usually I have to ask several times. Okay. So how much energy was required? It's equivalent to 7 Hiroshima bombs every second.
Wow.
7 Hiroshima bombs every second, every minute, every hour, every day throughout the entire year. Think of it this way. Before you saw that slide, your heart rate, 7 Hiroshima bombs every heartbeat over the entire year. That much heat is being added to our Earth. Well, just as you and I, when we have a fever, the fever is not the problem. It's an indication that we have other problems. The Earth is going to survive. There's no problem with that, or no. Yes, there is a problem, but there is no issue. The Earth will survive. The problem is what impact it's having on the humans. It's an impact of water, health, food, hunger, poverty. Our changing of the Earth's warming is going to change the ecosystems in the Earth. Our polar bears are just giving an example of what's happening to this. If our carbon pollution production remains the same, this is going to be what's happening in Lexington, Kentucky. So we go from the greatest generation all the way out to Gen Alpha. You can look to see kind of where your generation fits. Well, my grandson, Gen Alpha, when he gets to my age in Lexington, he's going to be about 8 degrees warmer. Well, to put this in perspective, what is the climate going to be like in Lexington? So if we take Lexington's climate in 2020, what is the climate in 2060 going to be like? It's like what today's climate in Birmingham, Alabama is. Then, when my grandson gets to be my age, it's going to be equivalent to, like in Lexington, him living in today's Longview, Texas. Kind of astounding, right? So, what is happening? The frequency intensity of extremes. Droughts, fires, floods. The time between disasters over the globe has changed from, in the 80s, it was about 110 day, or between 90 and 100 days between every billion-dollar disaster. Now it's in the tens of days. So we've gone from billion-dollar disasters occurring every 100 days to billion-dollar disasters occurring every 10 days in the last 50 years. Why is this happening? Every 1 degree increase in temperature has a 4% increase in the water capacity. So therefore we have more rain, more floods. So not only is it the things we've talked about, but it's also the physical health, the mental health, and our well-being, a loss of culture as we wipe out many of our territories. So what can we do? Well, we can either mitigate, or we can adapt, or we can suffer. In the next 30 years, our population is going to grow by $1.9 billion on the earth. 1.9 billion people in the next 30 years. What do people need? Food, water, healthcare, buildings. How many buildings are going to be needed to house an additional 1.9 billion people? It's the equivalent of building the building structures in New York City every month. Think about that. We're going to have, in order to house these 1.9 additional billion people on Earth, we're going to have to build the equivalent of New York City every month. Okay? So if we look at where the energy is consumed, where the emissions are coming from, we have transportation about 28%, industry about 32%, buildings are about 35% of the energy usage. Now, oftentimes in graphs like this, you'll see energy production or power plants. Well, power plants themselves don't use the energy, it's distributed to somewhere else. So what happens is we combine to where the actual energy is used. And we see that the emissions, worldwide emissions, about 38% of the emissions are coming from buildings. Now, about 11% of this is non-residential buildings. About 17% of this is from residential buildings. And about 10% is for just the construction of buildings and the production of the materials. How much carbon did it take to build this concrete floor? That's included in this 10%. And we also see the breakout, like for instance, here on residential buildings, the 11% is indirect carbon production. Well, that's how much carbon is produced in order to do the electricity for the lights. That's external to the buildings. That's our indirect carbon emissions. And about 6% in the burning of the fuels and so forth that we use, natural gas and so forth, in the buildings themselves. So what are we going to do? So the International Energy Agency says, what do we need to do to reach net carbon production in between now and 2050? So between 2020 and 2030, we have basically had about 30% increase in the carbon production, or the greenhouse gas production. Much of that reduction to get it down to 50% is going to come from mitigation and demand changes, avoiding demand. Energy efficiency and electrification is going to bring it on down. But then between 2030 and 2050, between 2030, between 2030 and 2050, we are again going to we're going to double the amount of, because of all the additional people and buildings, we're going to again double the amount of CO2 equivalent. So again, behavior and avoided demand is one of the things that we're going to reduce. Energy efficiency, electrification, those are the big things that globally is going to happen. So what about us? What can we do in Lexington? Well, you are going to be a big part of that. You are the leaders in our community. Education is a big part, but policymakers and those that influence people are going to be a big part of it. Taking the leadership in addressing this issue, you are going to be the biggest part of that. What can we do? Turn things off. You know, the best way to conserve energy is not use it. There's a thing called a light switch. Use it, right? Use energy more efficiently. Drive less. Use heat pumps. We are seeing now heat pumps that are very efficient down to minus 20 degrees. A lot of people say, you know, heat pumps don't work in cold climates. Well, we're seeing a lot of new technology where those are occurring. Use low carbon energy sources. So what we can do is we can control the emissions from energy usage better at power plants or at central locations than we can individually. So there is what's the bottom line of that? Rather than using natural gas locally, go with electricity, because we can reduce our carbon production at the source. And once we switch to electricity, then we can convert that electricity to being renewable production. And then finally, land use management. The amount of carbon that is conserved or saved by trees is tremendous. And I've got some data on actually what's happening in Lexington. Land use management, conserving our resources in the community is going to be a great component to that. So at the end, then you ask, okay, all this is going to happen. Why have I got to do it now? Why have I got to make changes now? My response to that is, how many times can I deal with carcinogenic materials before I get cancer? The answer is, we've got to be doing it now, okay? And you are the ones that can help us do this. And the time for action is now. So with that, questions, comments, thoughts? And I don't know who wants to moderate that. Yes, ma'am.
I've been reading a lot about how much energy AI is using. So with the amount of increase we've had in carbon emissions over the last few years, is there any projections about how the growing use of AI is going to impact climate change?
So the comment is the use of AI and data centers. Yes, it is a real problem. Last year, I was invited to a closed door session in International Energy Agency in Paris. Closed door session, an invitation only. The fellow next to me was in charge of the electrical utilities in Ukraine. And the issue was, what can we do? And what about energy security? And the number one question that was raised there is, what are we doing about data centers? It is the data centers and their energy usage is a tremendous component. The thing of it is that they have what is known as a load level. So basically, once you turn them on, they run. They don't go up and down. There are some load management techniques, but we do need to be addressing the additional energy demand from the data centers. I know that, and I work with one of the largest utilities in America that's dealing with what's our energy generation mix for the next 30 years. And that's a real critical component, and they are addressing that question. Yes, sir.
The graph looked like temperature started significantly rising 1950. And the reason for temperature to go up on the graph, the temperature started significantly rising in 1950. And presentation of the temperature rising, they were hot to human activity. And I thought I would say that the lot of human activity came about with the Industrial Revolution. The drivers and started in 1870. So you have 80 years of 1870, 1950. Should we have expected to rise during that 80 or 100 years? Good enough. So the issue is, if we look at yes, that's where the Industrial Revolution started, but it was not until we really reached post-World War II where it really took off. And that's why there was a change after World War II, a real change in which we expected a little bit of change. And actually, if you were on the graph, there was a little bit of increase, but it was only after World War II where it really spiked. Yes, sir. So, I think I talked about what would happen if you have real of the world. So, not only is there a whole bunch of slides, that was one of the slides that I had. So the largest, the blue serve is China, followed by India and then America. But that is per capita, it is less than China. Per GDP, it's greater. But it's roughly a quarter. A quarter. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That beef consumption, a lot of people say that production of beef consumption creates a lot of methane. If you look at no beef consumption at all, how did that impact our ocean? What was the beef consumption?
So it is. So what we were looking at was what we call engines of green here. That was the legal cause. Yes, animals, they produce methane, and methane is as a different challenge than CO2 as far as the time it's being so forth. Certainly, the production of human consumption is important to us, but when we look at the methane production around the world is more. There's a whole lot more that's coming from burning of gas than there is that.
And Dr. Collins will take one more question.
Yes, sir. And I'll be glad to stare at him after. Yes, sir.
Picture you had up there showed the sunrise one place coming in and bouncing off. The other out of fact, the number of parts in the air, getting to day number that day back at heat exchange. Well, on the part there for days, some of that might be getting the earth. Good question. You thank it first. Perhaps do that. So what happens is, remember, the solar rays coming in is a different wavelength that the radiation is coming back out. So the CO2 acts as a filter, and it doesn't block the radiation coming in. But because it is a different way of things going out, it belongs to that. So that's where the balance is. And that's why we call it a green council there.
All right, thank you. Dr. Colliver, we appreciate your time, your expertise. We
I do have a final
we have a gift for you. We have a gift for you from our esteemed photographer, Bill Strauss, and they were going on eBay last night for $375. Next week is our holiday party. You don't want to miss that. We'll have the kids and the teachers from Booker T. Washington. Remember, it's a great day to be a Lexington Rotarian. We are adjourned.